Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wonderland of Possibilities, where anything is possible and magic is real. My name is Venus Castleberg, your host, and I am so excited today to have a very special guest, Nicolette. Welcome, Nicolette. How are you?
Hi, Venus. I'm really good, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's truly my pleasure. So, Nicolette, why don't we, for people who don't know who you are, why don't we just tell you people a little bit about yourself? Where do you live? Where do you come from? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Hungary, and this is a really small country in Europe, Eastern Europe. Now I'm living in Mexico City at the moment, but my plan for the following years is more like living in some places which I love for a couple months. So that would be now Mexico City, and then we are moving back to Hungary because I'm having some classes there, and then we're gonna move to Florence and then Paris, and just that's my goal. I don't really like to stick myself to places because I get bored really quickly. And I don't feel like I am a Hungarian person. I'm more like someone who loves everywhere. So it's always been like that. So I am from Hungary. I grew up in a small village there with like a really poor family. And also another interesting thing about my story is that no one had a degree in my family, not even a high school degree. So that was the environment I grew up. And my parents divorced when I was 7 years old. And on the day when they got divorced, I stayed with my dad and my sister stayed with my mom. So we separated basically. And I remember we were sitting in the playground with my dad. He was really sad. And I told him, you know, Dad, I think your reality is just too small for me. And this became like something that we always repeat in family occasions, that my dad always said, you know, Nicolette's reality was always bigger than ours. So it's really interesting. From a very young age, I knew I was different. I knew I kind of belong here, but at the same time, I always knew there is more.
That's awesome. So you are an access consciousness bars facilitator? What are you?
Now I'm a certified facilitator.
You
For
are
a
a
couple of
certified
years.
facilitator. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, great. So how did you discover access consciousness? Because access consciousness really is about there's a whole different reality possible.
Yeah.
But how did you find it for you?
It's really interesting because I always knew there is something more, but nobody told me before. And like nobody empowered me or told me that I can be more or have more. I always knew. So for that reason, I hated my life because it wasn't the way I wanted to be it. And in 2015, I got to the point when I was so depressed. I hated my life. I hated my job. I hated my parents. I hated everything basically. And so my life was more about using drugs, drinking, being super unhappy, hangover every single day. I remember 2 years in a row, every single day I had hangover on the next day. And I was always like, I will stop this. But I never did. And I felt like I am a failure. I felt like I can't get over this thing. And I felt, okay, this is because my whole family had addiction to something, alcohol or some other stuff. And that was my story I was keep telling to myself. So I kind of kept myself in this small bubble that I felt I can't get out of it. And then one day I was riding my motorbike in Budapest and I get into an accident where I almost lost my left leg. And it was, my whole story started from there. I feel like my whole life started from that point. So I got into the accident and I right away was told by the doctor who came with the ambulance that he can't take me to those hospital that they want me to because if he takes me there, they're gonna amputate my leg. He wants to take me to this specific hospital because then I would have 50% chance to save my leg because the best doctors are there, but they don't allow him to go there. So he basically stay there with me for an hour waiting for the center to tell him, okay, fine, take her there. And they fired him. And he was like, if I take you there, he's like, they're going to fire me tonight. It's okay. I'm not taking you there. You're too young. You're going to be fine. So he took me there. And it's basically a center for like huge accidents and this kind of thing. And they always have like a group of 10 doctors every single day who are working. And so in that rotation, the best doctors were in the operation rooms, and all the doctors left. They said they can do this because they don't know how. So basically they called another doctor who was just like someone who sometimes came in if they had some cases, interesting cases. And he was free that night. He came in and he saved my leg. But he told me that he doesn't know what's going to happen to me the next day because the injury and everything was just so bad and my wound was open that he doesn't know how my body reacts. So if I would have an infection, then he has to amputate my leg tomorrow or after tomorrow. We'll see. And I remember for the very first time in my life, I was like, take me wherever you want. I'm fine. And I had this huge release I didn't know back then, but a huge release of everything from my past. I was like, I'm not going to be the same person anymore. This happened to me for a reason, not because the life wants to just teach me something. It's more like, it's my choice, because I saw the next day that, so I used to be a hairdresser, and not like a hairdresser, but more like an educator or a trainer for kids. And also I was working for Tony and Guy. I was working for Davines, like the biggest brands, and traveled the world. But it wasn't my thing. I love to teach, but that was the only part that I loved. And I didn't care about hair. I didn't care about style. I didn't care about all of those. And I remember the next morning I woke up and they told me, you can't stand on your feet anymore. And I was like, yes. And I knew I chose this because then I have an excuse not to go back where I came from. And so I did not have tools at the moment, and I didn't know anything. I only knew just something about the Silva method. And it's a cool technique to work with your, I don't know, senses. And I remember one thing my ex-boyfriend told me, that you have a lab, you can go down and work on your body or someone else's body. And so in a couple of days, I was told that they have to amputate my leg because the infection got bad. So the next day they will take me. So the day before, I asked my family to leave my room, and I didn't know what to do. I had no tools, but I was like, well, I just heard this story about this Silva method. I give it a chance. What could I lose? So a whole night and a whole afternoon, I was going down in my lab, put my leg on the table and just putting all the small pieces back together, healing it with dandelion and, I don't know, gold. And I just got to the point at night, like 3 a.m., I was like, I don't really care anymore if I have a leg or not. And I didn't know what I did, but I let it go. All my resistance and all of my wants that I want this leg, I want it to be in a certain way. I was like, everything will happen to me, I will be fine. And I'm going to make the best out of this for sure. And the next morning they come back to my room. They told me we have to do a quick blood test to see how it goes. And in like 15 minutes, the nurse runs back to my room. She's like, what did you do? And the doctor came back to the room. They opened my wound. They are smelling everything. They're like, this is not smelly anymore. And your blood test is just fine. What did you do? I'm like, I think I just saved my leg. And they called me a UFO, UFO. And it was fun. And when my family came back to the room, my mom passed out. She was like It was her story. And and I remember my sister stepped into the room. She saw me and she said, "You're happy. I see you happy for the very first time in your life." And I was like, "I'm happy. I don't have to go back where I was. I'm not going to be a hairdresser. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to make any money. I just know one thing. My life is going to change from here." And so in this process, I met someone who introduced me to my first facilitator, András. And I had to wait like 2 months to take his first class. And it wasn't an access class, it was something else. And at the whole time he was talking about access consciousness, and I didn't speak English back then. Like, it was 6 years ago. I haven't speak English. And I was like, what is access? And he was selling this book called um, the money workbook.
How to become money.
Yeah, how to become money workbook. And the book was there. He's like, "Hey guys, there is these books here. You can buy them." And I was like, "How much is that?" And he's like, $30. And back then, for me, $30 in Hungary, I'm like, kidding me? $30 for one book? And it's like so tiny. And there is only lines in it and questions. Like, what is this? But the book was pulling me, and I had no money back then. So I paid for the class, but I had no money for lunch. And I had some money left, and I just bought the book. I went back home that night, and I read the whole book, and I used a Sharpie, and I was like, "Oh my God, I know all of it. I don't understand this with my mind, but I knew all of it that was in the book." It was crazy. I'm like, "What is this thing?" And it was just pulling me so hard, and for the very first time, I knew I understand this. And when I got to my first bars class and to the foundation, because I was taking the classes on the row, I remember I stepped into the room and I had no money still, only for the class. I gave András the money, and he took the money, and I said, "I fucking hate you." He's like, "Excuse me?" I'm like, "I hate you guys that you are taking so much money from people. This is not okay for a 4-day class taking this much money." And he's like, "Do you hate me, or what are you aware of?" And I was like, "I'm just aware that my life is going to change if I pay this." And he was laughing. So he went back home that night, and his girlfriend, Maya, she asked him, "It's like, how is class? How is people?" And he said, "There is one girl. She knows everything." And for the very, I just stepped into the class and I used a tool that I didn't even know that exists. I'm like, "I know if I pay this, my life is going to change. So I don't really hate you, but I still have all of it." And he's like, "What are you aware of?" I'm like, "I'm aware that if I pay this money and I be in this class, this is going to happen to me. If something will open up." And so that's where I started with all of these things. I'm super grateful to András, because he was the very first person in my life who never judged me for who I was. He could see my limitations, but he didn't take it like it was true. And he didn't judge me for them. And he always saw who I can become and who am I really. But he was connecting to me. So he wasn't connecting to the person who I can become in the future. He was present with me, who I was. And it helped me so much to just let go of my barriers. And the very first time in my life, I felt not blame and shamed. And I was okay just how I was. And I never experienced that before, ever in my life. That was the very first time in my life that I was like, I'm not wrong. I'm not stupid. It's not true that I'm not intelligent. I'm just not interested in history, because I'm interested in the future. Because my dad was blaming me for my whole entire life that I'm stupid because I was not interested to read all those books about wars like he did. He loved it. And I'm like, I don't care that. He's like, he was talking about Hitler and this and that and this happened and that and then all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't really care. Like, let's create something. And it's like, no, I don't want to create. But you know why it's happened? Why we Hungarian are so messed up and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't really care about this stuff, Dad. And that was the very first time I'm like, oh my God, everything I am and everything I want, it's okay. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's okay. So this is how I met these tools, and this is the very first thing in my life that it sticks me is like I'm more enthusiastic every single day about these tools. It changes so much. It's always a discovery of yourself, and like it's really awesome.
Yes, I would agree. Access consciousness. So that was your introduction into access consciousness. What made you decide that you wanted to become a certified facilitator of access consciousness?
I I oh, it's funny. I never wanted to become a CF ever. I was using these tools for myself because I always felt I was really messed up and screwed up, and I never had money. I I was always good in things, and I was always super creative. But I did something at some point. I felt like nah, no, I don't want this. And I was really good at giving up myself for relationships. So I would create something, and I had the relationship, and I gave up everything, and then the relationship didn't work for me, of course. And then I start from scratch, and then this this was my life. And so I was somehow keep going back to classes, and I after my accident I got married, and I also got divorced really fast, and I find myself with no money, no jobs. And my husband, he was from the United States, so we were living in San Francisco. So I moved back to Budapest. I felt like, oh my God, everyone will blame me. That, like, I got married to this guy and moved out to the US, and then I just came back, no work, and it was really hard for me. And that was the very first time when I saw like how much I give up myself for a relationship, because I always been told when I was a kid that you need a rich husband or you need someone who provides. And that was my point of view. So this is kind of how I created my life before. And at some point I realized that I do really have this point of view that I need a man who is providing for me. And when I realized that I have that point of view, I was like, okay, I'm changing this. Even if I die, even if I don't know, I can't survive this, I'm going to change this. I can't live like this anymore. I can't do this. So I really committed to myself, and I had on my mirror that I am the source of my creation, not the money, not other people. I am the source. So I committed, and that journey started with, okay, I felt like I need more information. So I was going to dance classes, choice of possibility first. And then as I took that class, I was like, oh my God, I want more. So I took another class and another class. And basically, I spent all of my money on classes. And at some point, we were in Vienna with a friend of mine, Graham, who works for Access. And we were drinking coffee on last morning. And he's like, well, so then are you coming to the Rome CF class? I'm like, I'm not coming to Rome CF class. I'm not going to spend 4 days with idiot people. And he's like, what? I'm like, I am an idiot. I know my stuff. I don't want to spend time with similar people for 4 days in a row. I don't care. And he's like, come on, stop it. And he told me something. It was really amazing. He said, you know, you don't have to teach a class, but just 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 think about it for a moment. Can you imagine yourself walking around the world with the energy of being a CF? And I was like, oh yes, I want that. So I didn't go to the Rome CF class because I love Americas more. So I waited for the Mexico class, and that year during COVID 2020, I became a certified facilitator, and I did my first foundation class, and I realized that all of these people who come to class, they are not stupid. That's not actually true. And I'm really grateful because I'm able to spend time with people who are seeking for more. So this is what I am realizing more and more, that people who find me, they are not messed up. Even
Mm.
they might think they are, but
Right.
everyone has so much potential, and everyone has so much of gifts and just yeah, qualities that they don't even see. And it's really cool to see in 4 days that it arises, and to see their faces to light up. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's why I really do love foundation classes. But also I'm really weird, because most of the CFs, when they become CFs, they don't really like bars classes, but that's my go-to. So I do more bars classes than foundations,
Mhm.
because I do love the change in
Mhm.
people's life in just one day. It's amazing to see how much change they got out of one class.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. So when you went to CF in during COVID, did you just stay in Mexico then? Is that
So I came to Mexico to take those classes. I think the first class I took online, I'm not sure. But then the next year I came to Mexico, yeah. And I stayed for 1 month, and I came back to Dane's ABC class, and I stayed another month. And I love so much Mexico. I just do love Mexico City. I think this is one of the best cities on the world. And I always knew I'm going to live here one day. And this year um, I really wanted to change my business, because we really grow dynamically and very fast.
Mhm.
So we basically have 400 people in the bars classes, and we are having a foundation class next month, and we have 150 people in class. So it's like a lot of people everywhere. And sometimes I feel like I need some, because so organizing a class like that, and also
Mhm.
being present with all these people who wants to come to class,
Mhm.
they can come, and like all those energies, I'm super sensitive of those. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to get out of here. And yeah, and this would be now for 2 months. And I just came back in December to be here in Mexico. And yeah, it's been my fifth time, I think. Every class they do in Mexico, I come, because I think this is the best place on earth.
Awesome. Well, I didn't there were quite a few people, but I was at ABC with you in Mexico, so
Wow. Yeah, it
yeah.
was quite a few people. It was like one of those classes that they did finally, a body class. So many people came. I
Mhm.
remember that. It was
Yeah.
really cool.
We have somebody
Yeah.
saying hello.
Aw.
She loves videos. She's like, "Oh, it's my turn." Um, awesome. So, what would you say is your favorite tool in Access Consciousness?
Uh, so I have just one. I can say a
You
couple.
can say a couple. Yeah.
Okay. I think so. My favorite tools are the questions for sure, and I have some really favorite questions which I always ask. My one of my favorites, which is, what do I want my life be like in 5 years? And I do love that. Like use it with another questions like, what is my reality? Because
Mhm.
what I discovered over the years is that where I was starting from, I was living in, so during my accident, I was living in Budapest on the suburb. I was living paycheck to paycheck as a hairdresser, and drinking a lot, and being unhappy with my body and with my friends, and depression and blah blah blah. And to see how far I came from that is not just money wise or body wise, it's just the energy of my life is just so different. So the space from which I create my life is really different, or the space from which I ask a question is really different. So for me, those questions, and just being actually really curious about the awareness that shows up. Because what I realized, and that's what I tell people most of the time, is like, hey guys, you should know, what do you want your life be like? Otherwise you are not able to choose. Because how do you choose if you don't know where you go? So that was one thing. So I was really super clear on where I'm going, and it changed over time. So when I really like to journal. That's my favorite thing on earth. I love to sit here in Mexico City in cafes, listening to some music or recordings, and then just write about nothing basically, but like asking questions of myself, and not even responding to them. And that those would be my favorite questions. Is like, what do I want my life be like? And what is my real reality? Like, what is my true reality? And even now, my life is amazing, but I know this is nothing.
Mm.
Like,
Wow.
because from where I came, this is so much. Like that girl in 2015, I couldn't imagine with my mind that this could be my life. And that the other thing is, I couldn't imagine that I am able to create this, because
Mhm.
I didn't create it through my man or through my family. I did it by myself. And so for me, this shows that, okay, I came here, where do I want to go? And so this
Mhm.
is my thing every single day. I was like, where do I want to go? What do I want to create? And those are my favorite tools. But if I have to use something really simple, because I'm super aware, I just came back from Tulum. We've been there for 4 days. It was the worst 4 days in Mexico. I don't like that place. So a lot of people do drugs. It's kind of like spiritual, but in a way that, so all what I was perceiving, most of the people come there to let go of some drama and trauma through these spiritual rituals and medicine and all these things. And as soon as we got to Tulum, I got so unhappy and so depressed. And I was like, who does this belong to? Who does this belong to? And what I realized on the airport yesterday, we were sitting at the food court, and all these people came from this 5-star hotel, all inclusive. They were eating for 1 week, and they kept eating the burgers and everything. And all those bodies, they were so unhappy, all of them, so unhappy. And until we got back home, I gained 2 kilograms. My body looked completely, even today, I looked at myself in a mirror and I'm like, oh my God, what happened to my face? And I'm going to keep holding on to all those things. So I think it's super important for all of us, because it's not just me, it's all of us, is it's not yours. So who does it belong to would be one of my favorite questions, because you can't stop using it because as you get more aware, you got to use these tools even more. So that's what I thought. Oh, I will use a lot. I will use these tools a lot, and then I don't have to use them anymore. But the case is, as you get more aware, then you have to use it even more, or be it more. Maybe that's the way. Like, be the question all the time. Is like, whose is this belong to? What is this? And I really like to look at these things. Like, before I would judge my body. Oh my God, look at my body, how fat, and how do I look, and I'm tired, and what is this? And I was bloating on the plane. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I was like, this is amazing how capable my body is. It's like, if I wouldn't judge this, what is this? If this is a capacity, what is this? How can I use it on my advantage? And before, I would just hate myself for weeks, and I create even more of this problem. And now I see, I don't look at as a problem, is something amazing that my body is capable of. And I look at it in a different way. And I still super uncomfortable today. I'm still bloating and it's weird. I'm like, and just to keep sending it back. I'm like, okay, body, I got it. Just, yeah, let's change this. And I'm just here, like, do whatever you want, but can we just change this? So maybe this would be my favorite questions and tools.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, when you first started being a facilitator, did you have 150 people in your first class?
No, no one came to my classes. No one. Zero. I I really do want people to know this. It's amazing. I knew from the very moment I started my access bars facilitator business, let's say that, I always knew that everything I'm doing for my business will create something in the future, even though I don't see it right now. And so many times I had the class, set it up. I did everything I could. I created graphics. I did promotion. I did the Facebook event, and I went to buy snacks and drinks and tables and blah, blah, blah. And I set up everything, and no one signed up for my class. I've been home. And I had my computer and I was sitting there just like if people would show up, and I used that time to over create it. And I was like, okay, no one came, but I could receive and perceive that I was willing to create the event. I was willing to show up. I knew that created something in the future, but I couldn't see it. So at the beginning, honestly, I was still a teacher in a hair school. And then so I was working until 2 p.m. as a teacher. And so in the afternoon, I had space to be present with my business. And what I realized was what people need the most is connection, communication, and just when you are be there for them and they know that you are there, they will come back to you. And so what I realized at some point, I was like, now people are not coming to my classes. That's fine. So what else could I do? So what I was doing more like, I committed to do one Facebook Live a week. So people knew that I'm doing it. So they could come, they could ask questions. And I was doing other things. So I took my attention out of the bars classes and I was like, okay, I'm not going to put my attention here because it's obviously not working. And I'm getting more anxious because no one shows up. So then I got to do something different. So what I was doing is I started to create online courses, and I now have a membership that has 1,200 people in the membership. And we have other online programs that they're running at the same time, like 3 months programs or 1 month programs. And we have like 400, 500 people in those programs. So I realized that I'm not really good at doing one thing, but then I could do other stuff. So I do a lot of free stuff. So basically my YouTube channel has like 180 videos. I have a SoundCloud. I have a Hungarian podcast with 150 episodes with my co-host Maya. And we are really there for people. I have a big Facebook group with 10,000 people in it. And we're daily there. So we do challenges and we talk. I do short videos, tools, explaining stuff. And also we do a lot of newsletters where I send them recordings and gifts. And what I realized, we became a big community. And so I don't have a lot of followers, but when I put something out there, people come. So that's what I realized is everything that Gary says about how to create your business, people say, I don't know, it's not going to work. And they don't do it. And I did everything he said. He's like, call them. Just call them. Sometimes I just look at my clients and I call them. I'm like, hey, how are you? Or I just send them a Telegram message. I'm like, hey, I haven't heard from you for a while. And how are you? And she's like, they are like shocked. It's like, what? What do you want? I'm like, I don't want anything. I just want to know how are you, because I haven't seen you messaging for a while. And she's like, I'm not being good. I'm like, can I help you? I'm here. How can I contribute? And they're like, oh my God, thank you. And I'm like, I really do. I'm really being present with my business and with the people who come, and I'm really grateful for everyone who comes or join us for anything. And I really do put my all energy into the classes, and where I am at, I am present there. So maybe I'm not responding to all the messages real fast, but where I am at, I am always there for people and being with them. And I think this is what it's required. And so we started to have bigger classes, meaning 15 people during COVID. And so we had the one venue that we could fit 17 people. So we did bar classes every weekend, but I got exhausted. So basically what we were doing is I realized we need a bigger venue. So that was the first time when they opened up after the COVID in 2020 that we find a bigger room in a hotel. And the very first time we set up the class there, we had also massage tables outside of the room because we couldn't fit all the people who signed up for class. And so then for the next class, we find another venue. It was full. We've been there twice, and then we needed to find another venue. We've been there twice because we could fit only 100 people. And so my last class was 200 people. And now we moved to the biggest room in Hungary, is in a Marriott hotel. It's 600 square meters, huge, 400 people. And we have a waiting list. They can't sign up for the class yet because we were not able to do the tech yet. And the waiting list is full. And so we have the other class. So what I see is you have to create space for people to come. And I never knew. So even now, just the room at the Marriott Hotel is $15,000, just the room.
Right.
And I don't know if they will come, but you have to take the risk. And so that's what people do. Oh, I just do the class in my living room. Yeah, how many people can fit in there? Not many. And so people should know they have to show up, don't hide anymore, get out of the house, get the venue. And when people want to come, go to another venue, a bigger one. And this is uncomfortable. And that's what Gary says all the time, is you have to be uncomfortable to create a bigger life. But this is what we don't want. It's like, this venue, I know them. The snacks are fine if I take them. And because that was a hustle for us, always like getting a new venue and like dealing with them, want to charge for everything. And as we grow, we needed bigger team, tech team, and all this stuff is always becoming more and more expensive. And now we got to the point where we don't make any money on the class because it's so expensive. But it's so much fun and creates so much change in the world that it doesn't matter anymore. It's not about the money. It's more like 400 people in one room. Oh my God. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I get that. Yeah, it's like if we don't reach for more, if we don't ask for more, if we don't create the space for more, we never get more. So thank you for that. Thank you for laying that out so eloquently.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Nicolette, if everybody who's watching and listening today could get one thing out of today, if you're like, I really wish that you knew this, what would you want them to know?
Oh, so many things. So what I'm realizing recently, and is so huge in my life, is that there is a life that wants to live in you. And it's not like something outside of you or it's bigger than you are. It's like we all have so many gifts. We have something that wants to come through us. And so I really do like this. I'm writing a book now. That's why I'm in Mexico. And the book it's in Hungarian, sounds super nice. In English, not that much. But the book is going to be called What is the Life That Wants to Live in You? And it's not like there is something bigger than you are. It's just let your life speak. Let the universe speak to you. And are you listening? Are you listening to the whispers? Because that's what I realize. Using my depression, using thinking, using all these emotions. Oh my God, I was like, drama was my thing. And it was so loud. The music was so loud. All the instruments were so loud that I couldn't listen to the whispers. And they always been around me. It's like, hey, all my creations, the trees, the animals, and everything around us is like, and other bodies, and like keep talking to us. And so this is what I would say, like, let your life speak. And listen. Beautiful. And just listen.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Nicolette. It's been a true honor to have you today. And just, wow, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being you and the gift you really are to the world. It's really an honor. So
thank you. And thank you all of you who are listening to this. And just know you are not that messed up that you think you are. And and there is always more. Just reach for more and ask for more.
Oh, I love
Thank you.
There's always more. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.
Bye.